Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You know, um, I'm going to start by thanking the last few Cash App donors. Um, and I'm also going to let you know that this may be one of the last times that an image goes up with the video because of the editing problems. Clip Champ's difficult. I'm busy. Photos doesn't edit videos anymore, and of course they did away with Movie Maker anyway, so it's just a lot to edit the videos for upload. So if the video is going to be longer than 20 minutes, I'm going to start doing what accountability commentary might do, and they're probably not going to be longer than 20 minutes anyway, even if I wanted them to, unless it's a live stream. So let me thank the Cash App donors: Joe Schmo, Sir Anthony 4 times, Red Lion, A Dean, Red Falls Black, and Nana SW. Thank you all from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Um, One reason I don't really discuss the other things outside of couple formation is because, honestly, when it comes down to it, it does make a difference. There are always going to be struggles and challenges. Working on your body game. Well, do you want to earn a living and you want to go to the gym and be disciplined at it? Which one? I mean, damn. Some brothers want to talk about the importance of wearing a particular type of style of clothing that seems tailored to you, kind of tight on you sometimes. Oh, God. Really? And then they got the nerve to say, don't dress like children, while they look like they went into their favorite nephew's clothing anyway. What if you like room to move and you don't want your clothes tight on you? One guy said this, I forgot his name, I don't even care. He said this: if he sneezed, he looked like he'd opened a portal through space time. Clothes tight on him. Man, give your nephew his pants back. People out, people out here walking around with clothes look like they were painted on them. And they could seem stylish, but to get broads, to get chicks, look at what the women are wearing. They're 34 years old dressing like high school chicks with pigtails. You like that, don't you? No, no, I don't. They're just disgusting. So, I mean, yeah, I'm done. And I'm sitting up looking at what they all got to deal with, what the men got to deal with in the West. And it's disgusting after a while. So if you talk about money, it's okay to educate people about it. But in all honesty, it's not my field of expertise. So I've talked about what I've witnessed and what I've known. Right now, what I'm going to tell you about is why it is that the hyenas want us arguing with black men of other nationalities. And there are times we may have to argue because we're human, not because we're FBA and they're not. And there are times when we have to tell some of them, hey, look, don't sit up here and start bragging about what your community has accomplished. And then when somebody from your community acts up, say that they got that negativity from us. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's cut that mess out. That's a legitimate reason to put someone in their place. And a lot of people from these other communities aren't even doing that. If we're going to be honest, a lot of them aren't. In any case, I want to let you know why it is that the hyenas want to do this. And first, I'm going to tell you that I've witnessed with my own eyes the following and ears. When somebody wants different nationalities of black folks fighting with each other, Usually they are white or white adjacent. That's where it starts. I know that because in the 90s I started to hear that. I first heard it from them before I heard it from any of us. Now, in fourth grade, it was the first time I heard somebody tell me that if I went back to Africa, the Africans would kill me because they think I'm a white guy. I heard that from a black classmate of mine, but this is fourth grade. He was an idiot anyway. Kind of still is. For years afterwards, every time I heard someone say that, they were Wyatts. Finally, one day, a professor of mine at Morehouse, a Wyatt Latina, told me, you know, Black, I have more in common with the Caribbean and African professors here because we're all immigrants than what they have in common with you because y'all are black. They told me this. I said, really? Let me verify that then. I'll get back to you after I verify it, or don't. Now, when I would have had time, she didn't, and then later I never had time. That was a very busy year, but the point is that it did get me on the path of asking the Liberians, my Liberian classmates, something. Schoolmates, I should say. I remember them. They began to tell me that no, it was white missionaries that were teaching at some of the schools that told them back in Liberia that we black Americans will wait at the airport for planes from Africa to land so that we could rob them. Like, forget the fact that you don't get to bypass immigration when you land in anybody's country. Forget that. Forget the fact that you got to go through baggage claim before we might be able to reach you back then. Forget about all of that. All of that's not true. This is what's true. We're waiting at the airport so we can rob you. Despite the fact that there are people coming in from Europe with a hell of a lot more money, we're just waiting to rob people from Africa. That's what they were told. The missionaries that told them this were not even always white Americans. Oftentimes they were from Europe. Switzerland, Sweden, places where at that time there were no black folks. What the wuck did they know? And they're going to turn around and so I mean, now we see who started this stuff early on. We know. Now, later when I met my American ex-wife and I then met her mom, former mother-in-law at that time, future mother-in-law, she told me, yes, Black, I'm in the 70s. Before she was born, I went to Ghana. And she said that when she was in Ghana, the Ghanaians asked her, is it true that black Americans take pictures of us Africans and play darts with our faces? And she said, that is not true. We don't get a lot of photographs of Africans, and we don't play darts with anybody on anything. We don't play darts at all. The whites had told them this. She said, they told us that you all sat around naked, chasing Tarzan. They lied on you too. She said that one day she went to somebody's party in Accra. And there was a white American lady that happened to be there. And when she realized that my former mother-in-law was American, she said, oh, did you come back to Africa to tell them about us white devils? And she said to her, I didn't know you white devils were here, but now that I found you here, yes, I'm going to tell them about y'all. Absolutely right, you devil. And she proceeded to tell them. So that's where a lot of this stuff started. Now, my question to you is, if Zaddy's been behind this sort of stuff before, and his B-word Becky and Karen and Amber, then Father Wuck are the Westernisha hyena sisters now on the same thing. Well, you need to get your respect from them Nigerians because they don't like you. Well, you need to go tell them something because they don't like us. No, we ain't got nothing to tell them. I mean, if we do, it's between us as men. We ain't got nothing to tell them for sisters. Well, they be dogging us out because we American. No, they dog you out because you dog yourself out. Look what you'll do for some money. That's what it is. You are bought and sold. You want to sell yourself, and then you want to act like nobody can ever own you after you have sold yourself. Look at you. And got the nerve to be mad. Well, the thing is, here's just like Zaddy doesn't want us comparing notes with brothers from other places, because then that means we compare notes about what the hell he did. So that in the states we in ghettos, we were, and in other places we were in slums. Sometimes still are, sometimes not. Look at that. Now, that's what he does not want. I know that because I've seen it on them. I've seen how they try to stop it. I've seen how they try to discourage it. Y'all heard what that professor told me what I found out. That got me on the path to finding this out. Y'all know about that. And since then, I have seen not only Wyatts, I have seen other people that are not white but Wyatt adjacent that have also gotten nervous because they see me in solidarity with other black folks. Not because I think that everybody black is always right, but because I do think that black folks deserve a much fairer shake than what we've gotten, and that's on the basis of race, not nationality. They get it. I've had a Pakistani who was born and raised in Zambia ask me if don't I think that it's a bit racist what happened to them white farmers in Zimbabwe. What? Why the hell would I think that's racist? They didn't buy that land. Their grandfathers took it by force. They got walked off of it later. So, turns out Zimbabwe's inflation was due to the fact that they were still dependent upon England for aid, and England had the nerve to say, no more aid for you. Well, of course they were going to say that. Their white farmers got kicked out. But that's really what it was all about. You want to ask me if don't I think that's a bit racist? I think it was racist when their grandfathers took the land by force from the original black folks that had it. But he saw me in solidarity with other black folks when black folks were the victims, and he wanted me to think that was racist. But he Pakistani. Growing up in Zambia, didn't see some of his family members for years because the ones from Pakistan that went to visit them in Zambia got scared at the airport in Nairobi and didn't even make the connecting flight. They turned around and got back on the plane that was going to go from Nairobi back to whatever city it was in Pakistan. Because they found themselves in an airport surrounded by some black people. Yeah. They were scared. He told me this himself. Like, what are they going to do to some Pakistanis because some Pakistanis flew through Nairobi to go catch a connecting flight to visit relatives in Africa? What the hell were they going to do? You don't belong here. Stab them to death? What the F, man? But that's what they thought. Well, you see, just like Zaddy did not want us comparing notes because we find out what Zaddy did pretty much across the board, now you got Boom Chic and Bonquish and Sophista Ratchet Sapphire. And they don't want us to compare notes with brothers from other countries. Now, what is it that they don't want us to find out? Well, now we know what that is. When I told you they didn't want us comparing notes with brothers from other countries, now you know what the hell they're hiding. Their treatment, how abnormal it is. They want you and me to think that their treatment is normal. If you got friends from Liberia and they're from both the city and the hinterlands, and they tell you about how much better they get treated, and you find this out or you see it, bruh, guess what? You're not going to tolerate this kind of treatment from a woman that sits up and says you got to do as much, you got to do more for her than he can do for his wife at the time financially, but she ain't going to do nothing for you. You can say, wait, what the F, man? If you are friends with Ethiopians, and I mean not just the ones born in the States, but also the ones from Ethiopia, and you see their wives showing respect to them and appreciating what's done for them, you're gonna look and say, wait a minute, no matter how hard I try, she don't appreciate nothing I do. So Boom Shika, Bonquish, and Sophista Ratchet Sapphire don't want you being friends with other ADOS, man. They don't want you to be friends with black non-ADOS, man. They don't want you to be friends with Latinos. They don't want you to be friends with Arabs. Sometimes these men don't want your friendship, but these sisters don't want you to be friends with them even when they do look up to you and they like you. No, even then, no, they don't. But wait a minute. The ones that are cousins of ours, they don't want us to be friends with even the men from the Caribbean whose women are acting the same furthermucket way, not because their women spoil them, but because they will fight back if their women disrespect them. Just that is too much for them. So they want us thinking that everybody else hates us because we ADOS. And I'm going to tell you this. Rhoda Osman did not expose something wrong with her people. It's not true. The conversation between Rhoda Osman and the rest of her people sounds like what I'm going to let you hear for the next 5 seconds, starting now. That's 5 seconds. That's what it sounds like. Her people don't talk to her, and she doesn't talk to them. They're not her people anymore. Rhoda Osman is a Somali-born Carolyn Bryant. That's all. She didn't do anything she did because she's Somali. They don't think that what she did was okay. My wife doesn't know who the hell she is. Hadn't heard about it. And by the way, my wife is not here. She's not in the same city, so she's not in the same room. She doesn't know my channel's name, so I'm not getting points with her. I'm not scoring any points with her because I told you what I'm telling you. I'm telling you what I'm telling you because it's true. The Somali community didn't have anything to do with Rhoda Osman. But you know, there are some Sophista Ratchet sisters that want you and me to think this, but then they'll turn around and still try to reach out to Rhoda to encourage her in her feminism and misandry and even her alphabet business. So they want you and me to look at her and say, okay, now see, she did that because she's a tether. And all the people are tethers. But then they're going to turn around and reach out to her. No, we don't do that. It's not how this works. Rhoda Osman is just a basti niche because she's a basti niche and she ain't got no self-discipline. Sergeant Willie Pete is very good at knowing the demographic differences between different groups of people. Unfortunately, he is still subject to black anoia. Sometimes it is true, but there are times when it's not. Somalis and Ethiopians have 3 relationships because not all of them are the same. Somalis don't really get along with Ethiopian Christians, but the kids tend to get along better if they live outside of East Africa. Somalis and Ethiopian Muslims tend to get along pretty well. They don't intermarry, but they do tend to get along okay. The third relationship is the one between the kids, as I mentioned. They all come up East African, surrounded by non-East Africans, so they tend to put these things aside when they live in a diaspora. Notice that Ethiopians and Somalis do tend to live in the same cities and in the same neighborhoods or near each other, but they're not the same people. In Atlanta, a lot of both live in the Stone Mountain area, but they're not the same people. Same thing in Washington, D.C., well, that's more so Ethiopians. Now, in New Orleans, they're Ethiopians, but not many Somalis. In Houston, they're both. But when you find in Minnesota, you'll find both Somalis and Ethiopians, but the Somalis do outnumber the Ethiopians. But the point I'm making is that you will see a lot of many of them. That's what I'm getting at. They're not united. I know. I used to hang out with Ethiopians. I was learning their language for years. They're not united even against black Americans. Most non FBA black folks have things about which they disagree with African Americans and things about which they agree. So they don't walk around with a hatred for us or a love for us overall, either one really truly overwhelming the other one. They don't really have a hatred to overwhelm whatever love they might have. But there are times when they disagree. And when they disagree with us, it's usually the same things about which we disagree with each other. So we're not as different as what Boom Chic and Bon Quiche and Sophista Ratchet Sapphire want us to think. But why do they want us to think that we're so different? Because we are different in terms of what we tolerate from the women that come out of the same wombs as us and the women from whose wombs we come. That's where we are different. What does make us generally different is the gynocracy being amongst us and in South Africa, and that gynocracy not being amongst other groups. And when there's a gynocracy in the Caribbean, the men still fight back if they're disrespected. This tells you something. That's what they didn't want us to know about. That's what they wanted us to not find out. That's what they've been keeping from us all this mother cuss word time. That tells you a lot right there. There are things about which we're going to argue with these other communities, naturally. But you know what? When we men do it, we're going to have to remember to tell the FBA women, who ain't our women because they said it, that this doesn't concern them. Sad, but that's how we have to say it anyway. I want to thank you all for listening and bearing with me again. And because of the trouble I'm having with my U.S. bank account, I'm going to ask you guys if any of you has technical advice on how to link a Wise account to a Cash App. I thank you all for flying again with me on Jet Black Airways, where Jet Black is also a verb. Keep Jet Black with me till the wings and the wheels fall off. And as always, gender justice forever.